What's going on, Grande Prairie? My name is Sam McColeman, as some of you have seen on the Facebook page, and I'm a big disc golf nerd. I'm also a realtor. But yeah, I just started disc golfing probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Been a part of the Grande Prairie Club for 3 or 4. This is my 4th year I'm going on, I think. And yeah, I just think it's one of the greatest sports ever. I started off thinking everyone that played it was big nerds, and now I sit at home and dye my own discs, and so I'm the biggest nerd of them all, which I believe qualifies me to make this video for all of you. So without further ado, here is my 7 tips for every beginner disc golfer. All right, so my first tip is for the absolute beginners out there, or the people that have never even tried disc golf. So what do you need and what will help you your first time out disc golfing? Number one, you're gonna need discs. So I know some people have gone out and played with a frisbee before, like just one of those ring ones or like an ultimate frisbee. You're not gonna have a great time playing with those. So where do you actually buy disc golf discs? The spot in Grande Prairie to buy them is Playfair Athletics. They're open business hours, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they have their owner there, Ty, who disc golfs himself and can actually help you pick out some good discs for yourself as a beginner your first time out. So I would suggest going to them. There's also Ernie's, who will be open in the evenings and weekends too, so you can check them out. And then like a lot of Canadian retailers that sell discs online, so you can check any of those options out. The second thing I would recommend for a complete first timer, download the UDisc app. So just UDisc on the App Store. It is a great tool for anyone that's going to disc golf. I believe you get a free month of using that, and then it's a paid subscription. And so if you're, or maybe you get 10 free uses of it, something like that. But essentially it's a scorecard for yourself. So you select the course. It has location settings, so you can select the course that you're playing. In Grande Prairie, we have 3 courses, Thrill Hill, Self Bear, and Co-op or Evergreen. And so there's actually a map on UDisc that shows all courses nearby. I was able to find a course in Mexico on our family vacation using that. And so, yeah, it's got everything you need, from list of courses to instant scorecard. As soon as you show up to a certain course, then you load the scorecard. It'll tell you what the par is on every hole, and then you just enter in the amount of strokes that each player got on each hole, and it will digitally keep score for you. And it also keeps your stats, so I can go back and check what I shot on a certain hole 4 years ago versus what I'm shooting on it today, and everything in between. Yeah, it is awesome for any disc golfer. If you're gonna go out and play it more regularly, totally worth the 15 or 20 bucks or whatever it is for the year subscription. So yeah, UDisc is your other friend there. So with those 2 things, then you're totally set for your first round of disc golf. Alrighty guys, tip number 2. This is object of the game, etiquette, and rules. So the object of disc golf, same as real golf. Get the disc into the basket instead of a hole in as few strokes as possible. Every hole will have a par, which is essentially just the standard that someone has decided is how many strokes or throws it should take you to get the disc into the basket on that hole. If you par every single hole, you will finish the round even. If you shoot less strokes than the given par for the course, your score will be in the negatives, and if you shoot above that par, your score will be in the positives. UDisc will make all of that very easy for you to keep track of. Etiquette. Basic etiquette is basically the person farthest from the basket throws next. So just walk the fairway as a group is a good way to do it. You can socialize, hang out. Everyone can kind of go get their discs if they're scattered in different spots, but usually let the farthest back player shoot. And this is more of a safety thing than anything. You don't want a disc in the back of the head. As much as they're softer than golf balls, they're still, they got a fairly sharp edge on some of them, and they can get thrown pretty hard, definitely concuss you, or, hurt you pretty bad. So more of a safety thing, just walk up the fairway as a group and try and throw from as far back as possible, like for this player first. And then the other etiquette thing would be whoever shot the best score on the last hole goes first. Worst score on the last hole shoots last, and then you fill in between. This gets enforced in like tournament play and whatnot, but for the most part, everyone who plays casually is okay with just ready golf. Whoever is ready to go, has their disc out, and is prepared to shoot, they can go next. Just move things as quickly as possible. And then for rules, So first rule is your basic stance behind your disc. So once you have your tee pad, which obviously for your tee shot, you throw off of the tee pad, right? You have to release the disc before you step off the tee pad. You can throw it and then explode kind of off the tee pad, take a step off of it, jump off of it, whatever you need to do, as long as the disc leaves your hand first. But then for like if you're in the middle of a fairway or if you're deep in the bush, what you need to do is have one foot, which is your plant foot, standing on an imaginary piece of paper behind your disc. So you have this much room behind your disc. If my disc is right here, I can put my foot right here and I would be okay. But your foot needs to be behind your disc, and then your other foot has to be behind your plant foot and the basket. So like if the basket's here and my plant foot is here, my right foot can't be up here. It needs to be back this way so that it's not giving me an advantage in my next shot. Same goes for putting. Your foot needs to be behind the disc. The only rule that changes with putting is if you're inside circle one, which is a disc golf term for 33 feet around the basket. If you're within 33 feet of the basket, you are putting. So what this means is you have one foot behind the disc, your other foot needs to be behind that foot in some way. But once you release the disc, you have to prove balance is what they call it. So that means you can't throw it and fall towards the basket, like follow in with your feet, kind of walk it in or run through. You need to prove that your front foot, your planter foot, is balanced there. It doesn't move, doesn't lift off the ground until the disc comes to stop in the basket. So you hit chains, disc falls in the basket, now you're good to walk it in. Outside of 33 feet, you're allowed to do what's called a step putt or a jump putt, and you can look more into those. And that's essentially just using more of your own momentum to get the disc into the basket. Two other rules would be out of bounds and mandatories. Out of bounds, you've probably seen if you play Thrill Hill, they have a line of white stakes between holes 4 and holes 5. If you throw your tee shot or any shot out of that, so you're playing hole 4, if you throw it to the right of the stakes and it lands and comes to rest outside of the stakes, so on hole 5's fairway, then you're out of bounds. So what you have to do next is bring your disc back to the spot where it went out of bounds, put it on the fairway a meter, or it might be 3 meters now, I think it's a meter, off of the out of bounds line, and you're throwing your next shot from there, but you're adding a stroke to the hole. So if my first throw goes out of bounds, I bring it back to the spot where it went out of bounds, put it on the fairway, and then I'm shooting for 3 from there. Same thing goes for mandatory. It'll be a sign that says Mando. There's one on hole 4, one on hole 10. Might be some other ones out there, but and that's on Thrill Hill. So on hole 4, there's a mandatory sign that points to the left. If you go right of that tree in any way, so if you avoid that whole patch of trees or go just right of the tree or whatever, you've missed the mandatory. So that means you have to bring your disc back, put it on the drop zone token, which is just to the left of the mandatory. Probably can't see it right now because it's iced over, but put the disc down there and then you're shooting for your next shot from there, but adding a stroke. So if that was my second shot, I missed the mandatory, then I'm bringing my disc back for my third, and then my fourth shot is from that drop zone. All right, I hope I explained that okay. And if you got any questions, put them in the comments. So tips number 3 and 4 are going to be about discs. So this one we're going to talk about disc plastics. So if you're new or if you've been playing for a little bit now, you might still not know these things. So you've got 3 different main types. Well, mainly 2 different types. There's base plastic and there's premium plastic. So this is what base plastic will look like. Essentially, it's a little bit softer, a little bit more beatable. I don't know what word you'd use to describe it, but it feels really good in your hands. It grips nicely, and they're usually the easiest to throw right off the bat. So those are the plus sides to base plastic. Most people will use this for their putters because they get a good feel on it. And then, some other discs, mids and stuff like that. But the downside to this plastic, the main one, is that it beats in really quickly. So this is the kind of plastic you'll see in like starter packs on Amazon or any kind of if you ever see a disc for like $10 to $15, usually it's going to be this plastic. Which is not a bad thing. If you're going out to play 5 or less rounds a year, base plastic will do you totally fine. It's just every time you hit a tree or a basket or anything, it will become a different flying disc. More and more, it'll start to become understable, which I explain later on in this video. And so yeah, you're signing up for a disc that's going to change on you over time. They're kind of the great starters, but you will grow out of this disc. Next kind is the translucent premium plastic. So these will be a little more expensive. Right when you get these, they will be overstable, which I also explain later on in the video. And they're the disc that will beat in the slowest. So essentially, like, beat in sounds like a bad thing, but in some ways you do want a disc to beat in because it will essentially, it'll hit trees, so it'll change how it flies slightly. So once it gets beat in for, you know, usually if I use this disc for, I don't know, a couple months to a year, then it will kind of get to this place where it kind of holds that exact flight for the next quite a while in its lifetime. These guys are the most resilient, they'll last you the longest. A little harder to see if it's completely translucent and sitting on something. But yeah, they're a great premium selection. They'll usually be more in the $20 to $25 range. And then you have your non-translucent premium ones. This will be like your Star Plastic, ESP, K1 line, stuff like that. This is kind of that mix, well, not that mix of the two. It will be slightly softer feel than the translucent stuff. And so I really personally, when I started disc golfing, I like to feel this the most, and then I like to feel this. Now, this guy's my favorite. They may feel a little slippery when you're new, but as you get into it, the grip is really nice on them. They beat in slightly quicker than these guys, and they fly probably the most true to their flight numbers or what they're supposed to do right out of the bag. So yeah, they're also probably in that $20 to $25 range, possibly 30, but they're the disc that, these two discs are the ones, if you're gonna play more disc golf and use them quite often, they will be the ones you wanna buy. So look for the flight numbers and stuff that you want in better plastic like that if you plan on playing more. I'd still get putters in this kind, and if you got a couple discs that are DX or whatever kind of base plastic you like and they work for you, by all means keep throwing them. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just, yeah, if you want to, you know, invest in some better ones like your drivers and stuff, you'll probably want premium plastic, but it's stuff you can address later on down the road. I just want to save you from buying 30 DX discs and then playing a ton and having them all change on you and then having to go buy a bunch of premium ones afterwards. Tip number 4 is about the difference in discs and their flight numbers and what those all mean. So in disc golf, you have putters, mid-ranges, fairway drivers, and distance drivers. So it's not like golf where, you know, you hit your driver off the tee on almost every hole and you only use your putter on the green. Disc golf, it's different. So you've got 4 flight numbers, I hope you can see that, on the bottom of the disc. So your first flight number, that will always be your speed. So most people walk into a disc golf store and they think, speed, huh? Okay, get me the fastest, biggest one. So that will be a 13 or 14 speed. And then I'll throw it the farthest, right? That is actually wrong. I think of this number, rather than speed, I think of this as the force required, or the force required to make the rest of these numbers work the way they're supposed to. So if you go in as a total beginner and you grab a 14 speed, there is no way you're gonna have 14 speed worth of force to throw. That's basically only the professional players that can get that 14 speed. So I would say, as a general rule of thumb, if you are, say you're a natural athlete, you know, you're in pretty good shape and you play a lot of sports already, I'd say 7 speed is probably the highest you should go to start. If you're, you know, you've thrown a Frisbee a little bit and, you know, you're a casual athlete kind of thing, I'd say get a 5 speed as, you know, kind of your starting disc for what you throw off the tee and whatnot. And if you're a total beginner that has not played anything for disc sports or whatnot, just get a putter, and that will be your best thing to learn on. So once we get past that first number, that is your speed, the second number is glide. So essentially, like, this disc is a 6 glide. This will usually be numbers 1 to 7. 7 is extreme for it, but 5 is kind of your average glide. So on a disc that's, you know, say your driver or your mid-range, usually you want those to be glidier discs that can fly farther for you, where essentially if you give them enough speed, then they will glide for that amount of time. So if you get a disc, like I have a disc specifically that's a 1 glide because I don't want it to fly far. I want it to drop out of the sky as quickly as possible. But then I have this disc that's a 6 glide because I want this thing, if I throw it hard, to just glide its entire path until it runs out of speed. The next two numbers that it has are the turn and the fade. So the turn is the first number. So on this disc it's a 0. So that means it's not supposed to turn. What a turn is, so if I'm throwing a backhand, then essentially the disc is supposed to go forward and land this way. If I throw it completely perfect, this disc should go straight forward and land with a little touch to the left. That's just in general, and even like as a right-handed backhand player, 90 or so % of people's general tendency will be to throw it this way. This is the angle that you'll release it at, even if you're trying to throw it flat. So that means it's going to go over to the left. If it has a turn number on here, it will be a negative. So it would be like -1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So if it was a -4, even if I threw it like this, it would probably flip up and it would turn this way, and that would be its turn. Okay? So with this disc being a 0 turn, it's not going to go this way at all if I throw it properly. It's going to go dead straight and then fade that way. Second number is your fade. So that is the number that's supposed to help the disc go the way that it will naturally go already. So being a 1, this one's going to go dead straight with just a little baby fade at the end. This disc over here, it is a 3 fade. So as soon as I throw it, it's going to start turning this way, and it's going to go this way hard. And you might think like, why do you want that? But for some of those holes where it's just a straight dead or dog leg, straight around a tree, I love this disc because it'll go I can throw it straight and it will turn for me rather than me having to put a fancy angle on the disc to get it to turn the tree. If I just throw it flat, the disc numbers will do that for me. So that's the basics of disc numbers. There's a lot more that you can learn about them and that goes into them, but that's the general basics. I'll probably put a graphic up on the screen here as well, just to show what a disc is supposed to do for a beginner, an advanced player, and a professional player. And maybe that'll help you as well in your disc choice. Okay, number 5, I've got disc golf terms. So this is just might be some things that maybe you've been casually playing for 2 or 3 years, and then you go out to a disc golf tournament or you come to a league net or something, and you hear people saying all these wacko terms. I know I thought they were really weird when I started, and now I use all of them. So first off, a lot of them are the same as golf terms, like birdie and bogey, like the overall scorekeeping. Exact same as golf. Any Happy Gilmore quote you want to insert during a round totally works. But the disc golf specific ones, there's hyzer, which is essentially the disc. If I'm a right-handed backhander and I throw it, it's when the disc goes to the left, that's a hyzer. So the natural angle away from your body to the left as a right-handed backhand player is called a hyzer. An anhyzer is the opposite. So that's when I would crank it the opposite way where it naturally goes. So that's when you kind of round your shoulder there, put the disc on an angle. It goes the opposite way than where you normally would see it go as a right-handed player. It's called an anhyzer. Same thing applies for your forehand. If I'm throwing a forehand as a righty, a hyzer would go to the right and an anhyzer would go to the left. It's, it seems like overcomplicating things, but those are the terms for it. Some other things, backhand, that is just kind of the natural disc golf form. Forehand is when you throw it this way. You can also call it sidearm. You'll hear people say things like a thumber, which is when you throw it overhand with your thumb inside there. Tomahawk, which is when you throw it overhand with your 2 fingers inside there. There's a couple weird putting ones like scuba, grenade. You'll hear different ones when you play with more people, but really those are the basics you need to know. Also Mando and OB, like I said before. And then you'll hear overstable and understable. So that's when you're describing a disc. So an understable disc is a disc that will have a bigger negative number on the turn spot than on the fade spot. So say that it's a -3 and then a 1, that disc is understable, which essentially like a neutral disc or a stable disc is a disc that's meant to go dead straight. So that will be like a 0-0 on the flight numbers or a 0-1. Like this is a stable or neutral disc. So its purpose is to go dead straight. If it's an overstable disc, then its purpose is to go to the left. If it's an understable disc, its purpose is to go to the right. And that's for a right-handed backhand player. As soon as you switch that to forehand or a lefty, those directions switch. But yeah, that's what overstable or understable will mean. Number 6, just some tips for local Grande Prairie players here. So your 3 different courses that you have to choose from. We have Thrill Hill, which is probably the most common one that people see. That's the one that you'll be walking through Muskogee and you see baskets there. Thrill Hill is our beginner course, but it is not an easy course. Essentially, all over Alberta, you'll have a lot. Say Edmonton. Edmonton has Rundle Park, which is a very beginner-friendly course. Our courses in GP, because we have really good disc golfers in GP, they're all the ones that design these courses, and they made them really high, good quality, high-level courses, which just, it makes it a little tougher if you're a beginner and maybe feel discouraging, and it might feel like, well, this is impossible and hard. But if you push through that spot, then they end up actually teaching you a lot more about disc golf than an easy course would. Some things to make it easier though, we have white tees or red tees on every course. So if you download the UDisc app, you will actually be able to follow the GPS on it, and it will show you exactly where you just select the white tees layout, and then it will show you, they're all just shorter distances. So you're probably taking off 50 to 100 feet on every hole by selecting white tees. So if you're a total beginner or you're going out with a big group of people, you're trying to show new people the sport, take them to the white tees. It's much more doable. Everyone only needs 1 or 2 discs. And this even works like if you're a more advanced player, you can just go out and practice from the white tees with just your putters, and try and dial in your straight shots, or try and, they're there for a reason. So yeah, that's Thrill Hill. It's going to be our busiest course, but it's still, you rarely see backups. If you are playing as a big group and you have maybe 1 or 2 people coming up behind you, what you can do is just wait for them on a tee pad and say, hey, you guys can play through this hole. Or you can all throw your drives, wait for them, say, hey, you guys throw as well and we'll play this hole with you. You play the hole together and then you let them move past you for the next hole. That's just a common courtesy thing. Our second course is South Bear Creek. And that one is in the South Bear Creek area. You'll find it on UDisc. It is a slightly longer, more technical course than Thrill Hill is. It's beautiful to be out there. There's a lot of people walking dogs off leash. People, like other disc golfers, will bring their dogs off leash. Just make sure your dog doesn't eat frisbees. No one appreciates that. But yeah, that one just requires, like I remember when I was a rookie or beginner and my arm would just be falling off by probably the 16th hole, because it does take a lot more distance. There's a lot more par 4s on that course and more like open field kind of shots on some of them. So yeah, it's a great course as well. It's beautiful nature out there, and like it's really fun to play as soon as you get into disc golf a little bit. So if you've been playing Thrill maybe for a year, totally go check that one out. If you do want to play that one as a beginner, there's also red tees. So again, just look on UDisc is the easiest way to find the tee boxes. They are marked with little red tokens on the ground, and the tee signs also have the yardage for red tees versus blue tees. So select red tees on the UDisc app, and it makes the course a little bit easier for you, just a lot less distance and more manageable as a new player. Our last course is Co-op or Evergreen. That one is south of town, and it's beautiful out there. You really don't see anyone else out there, even if there is other disc golfers out there. It's the middle of forest. This is our hardest course probably. Just a lot of tight tunnel wooded shots. It's going to beat you up. I still can't shoot well on it, and I've been playing for a long time. But it is really fun, really nice to be out there, and it's getting cleaner every year. Phil and Caitlin Duffy run that course, and they've been taking great care of it, doing tons of maintenance on there every year, so it's only getting better. They got tee pads out there. They also have white tees as well. My wife Chloe loves playing that course on white tees because it doesn't require quite as much distance, but it still takes some technical shots. So yeah, it's a great one to go practice practice some new lines, or practice throwing straight with a putter, things like that. But yeah, those are the 3 courses. We're really blessed to have 3 courses. Edmonton's a huge city, and they just finally got their second full 18-hole course in the area last summer, and neither of them, in my opinion, compare to the Grande Prairie ones here. So just for the amount of people we have here, we're super lucky to have the 3 courses. So by all means, go check them out. Alrighty, and my 7th and final tip here is weather and disc golf, and kind of the correlation there. So I check my weather app every time before I go disc golfing, not really for the heat, but more, checking for rain in the summertime, but the majority of it is checking for wind. Usually my general motto is, if your consistent wind is 20K or less and your gusts are 30K or less, then you're good to go. Co-op is nice because it's really treed in, so you don't deal with the wind as much. But on those open holes on Thrill Hill, as soon as you're getting gusts up in the 50Ks, it becomes really tough. That's not saying that I don't disc golf in that. Provincials last year, I think we had 60 or 70K gusts, and it was a ton of fun still. So yeah, but here is, I'm gonna put a little graphic on the screen just of what wind actually does to your disc and the flight of your disc. Because, you know, there's obviously tournaments and pro things that go on while there's huge winds going, and people learn how to play through it. So yeah, there's just a little graphic to kind of show what your disc will do, how it will respond to the wind. So yeah, just feel free to pause it, kind of read over that, see if that makes sense to you. Another thing we deal with is heat. I remember the heat wave last year. I got time off work and didn't really want to go disc golf because it was 40 degrees, but even if it's only 20 degrees, it still gets hot and the discs then are just slipping out of your hands. So of course, bring water out to play disc golf, but there's also chalk bags, or whale sacks is now what they're selling for disc golf specifically. I just use my climbing bag and my little chalk bag. Just chalk up your hand before a throw. Chloe and I used to use the dirt in front of the tee pad, but then your hand's filthy by the end of the round. But that's a way you can kind of counter the heat and sweaty hands. Another thing is just the cold. Some of us play through the winter. I always thought it was stupid until this year, and I played all winter, and it's actually great. So some things for that would just be, and even right now, especially with like still deep puddles and snow, get some rubber boots. I got insulated rubbers for this year, and they worked for winter and summer, well, and spring here. Also, like, just keeping your hands warm really helps your disc golf performance in general. I throw about 50 feet shorter when my hands are cold. So even if it's like, say a summer night, but it's like stormy and just kind of yuck outside, it's just rained and everything's wet, bring like some fiberglass, or not fiberglass, whatever these things, microfiber towels. Wipe your disc off nice with them, as well as just, you can get some hand warmers for your pockets, play with gloves in the winter time and just take them off for your shot. Yeah, and then other than that, just kind of for gear, get yourself a good pair of, you can get trail runners, or you can get dad shoes, whatever those are. Everyone wears I think they're waterproof. You look like a dad if you wear them, but just a good pair of trail runners will get you through all of our courses. You don't need anything above that really. Sometimes, you know, if you're going out to South Barra Co-op, maybe wear pants if you're going into the bushes all the time. There's some spiky stuff there, but yeah, overall, those are some tips to battle the elements. Well guys, if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you know, one or two or all of these tips just clicked in some way and made disc golf make a little more sense to you. That's the whole goal of this video. If you ever need anything as far as like tips, tricks, or just a buddy to go play with, feel free to always hit me up. There's a lot of other good club members here that'll help you. Come out to our casual nights. On Tuesday nights is going to be casual doubles this year. Wednesday nights is league night, which sounds intimidating, but really you're only competing against yourself. It's just league night will keep a record of how well you score every single week, and you can just see your improvement through the year. It's not intimidating, and that's really the best way to actually see your game improve, is to go out with other people that throw the disc differently than you do, have been playing longer than you have. That's how I got majority of the skills I have now, is just watching other club members and getting tips and tricks from them. If you're ever looking to buy discs, go to Playfair. If you ever want your disc to look cooler, I dye discs myself here. And so yeah, I do custom orders for people's birthdays, stuff like that. Even if you just want your own discs all looking cooler, I do all that kind of stuff. So there's another shameless plug at the end, but yeah, thanks for watching guys, and have fun disc golfing this summer.